Welcome, painters. We are live from the patio in Colorado. It's a chilly 48 degrees. Got my jacket on, but I'm excited. We're here every Friday morning, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, to get inspired, educated, bounce ideas off one another, and just try to enjoy plein air landscape painting and become a better plein air landscape painter. So we're going to add today another object to this fall harvest scene. We're going to add squash. It is spaghetti squash, so that'll be fun. And then next week we'll add a third item and hopefully have ourselves a nice completed fall harvest painting. This is an 18 by 24. I can't even really see what I'm painting because this thing takes up so much room. But we got a challenge today, people, because there's no sun. And as you can see, I painted the pumpkin in sun. So we're going to talk about how to handle that too. And I just want to show you, usually I show you the painting that we did from last week. And I was on a painting trip, plein air painting trip overnight for one night. I did 3 paintings, and this was one that I did, and it's a 16 by 20. I just showed up at this mountain lake, and the sun was setting, so I had to kind of hurry. I did this in probably under 2 hours, and I would have liked to have had more time. I probably spent maybe 15 minutes on the water and the reflections, but that was real fun. Just brilliant, bright, chromatic, vibrant colors, light and shadow, strong contrast. These trees were almost like a black, dark color, but that was real fun. And I did 2 more paintings on that trip, and that was fun. And so today we're going to talk about this spaghetti squash and our placement, proportion, perspective, and just kind of try to get that. Then we're talking about fears too. Fears with, so I'm going to reach up here and just see if anybody's in the chat. If you are, just say hello. It's kind of hard to manage all this, but we're going to talk about fears that painters have, fears that come from within, doubts and about improving, starting plein air painting, and also fears that come from the outside, from other people viewing your work. Okay, so I'm excited, and if you're watching on replay, thanks for joining us. Leave a comment. Feel free to skip around. When this video uploads, I put timestamps or chapters on it, so you can skip around to the parts that interest you. And I've got plenty of other landscape oil paintings that are tutorials and demos to help you. And if we're just meeting, we haven't met yet, I'm Terry, and from Colorado. Love plein air landscape painting. Just love being outside, enjoying God's beauty, the outdoors, and painting. And it's a journey, man. We're going to talk about that today. Plein air painting is a fun, challenging, exciting journey. So if you're in the chat, say hello. Let me know who's with us. Just glad you're joining us. A lot of people watch these on replay, but if you're there, let us know who you are and where you're watching from. And then we got a quote of the day to get us started here. And as I grab a small brush, we're going to kind of paint this spaghetti squash in. But here's a quote. Okay, listen to this. This isn't our quote of the day, but listen to this. See if you can figure out who this is. Put it in the chat or in the comments if you think. My life has been nothing but a failure, and all that's left for me to do is destroy my paintings before I disappear. All that's left for me to do is destroy my paintings before I disappear. Who said that? If you know who said that, put it in the comments or in the chat. Sorry, I got to reach up here and just see. I started using my iPhone for these live shows, and I'm just kind of trying to figure things out still. But that was Claude Monet, yeah, the father of impressionism himself. He was well known for cutting his paintings, burning his paintings, trashing his paintings. And so when we talk about fear and doubt and things like that, he's a good guy to kind of look at. But here is our quote of the day. It's much more positive, I promise. Giving up is the only sure way to fail. Giving up is the only sure way to fail. And so we're going to talk as we paint this, we're going to talk today about starting plein air painting and just improving as a painter and the mindset that goes along with that. So I hope to get those points in. Going to be hard to do all that, talk, chat, paint, but hey, we're just here to have fun. Grab your coffee. I'm going to need this morning. It's kind of chilly out here. I can see one of these times I'll turn the camera around, show you the view here, but there's like low-lying clouds on the mountains. So fall skies are here, and I'm heading out this weekend to paint. Hope you are too. But well, let's get into this. So why are we out here painting pumpkins and such when we're landscape painters? Because we want to learn the skills and techniques here so that when we head out to the river and the mountains in the city and paint whatever we paint, we don't have to think about it. It comes automatic. The skills are ingrained in us, and we're not thrown off by the weather or the light or people talking to us. We know what we got to do, and we do it. And but at the same time, we have fun. So I'm going to start drawing in this spaghetti squash. It is a winter squash technically. I looked at a butternut squash, but quite honestly, not to get in the gutter here, but it kind of looked phallic looking, the butternut squash, and it was the wrong color for me. So I just chose this spaghetti squash. All right. So let's just leave that at that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this in real quick. And let's see. Oh, yeah. This live stream is brought to you by the new Facebook group called the Learning Plein Air Group. So if you haven't joined us yet, we'd love to have you. We're over there on Facebook. I wasn't a big Facebooker, but it's really it's a good, cool little group. We got a lot of cool people in there. A guy from Australia, Tez, is in there, and then people from all over the country and other parts of the world, and we can learn and inspire and encourage one another. So join there, called the Learning Plein Air Group on Facebook. We'd love to have you. So we're going to learn to see, learn to draw, look at our pieces. We're going to draw this squash in here, and we're going to talk tips and techniques. And so the first thing I'm looking at here is with this squash, I'm going to draw it in, is I think about placement, proportion, and perspective. So that's what I think about. So the placement of it, I got to show it as in front of the pumpkin. I think you can see the palette, the canvas, and the stuff. If you can't, let me know. Hey, Bob, glad you're with us, man. Just going to scroll up here. Checking in from France. Awesome. I love it. Bob's from France. That's so cool. Man, got to go back there one time. And next time I'll bring my painting stuff. I was there. I played pro hockey in Switzerland Zurich, just outside of Zurich. And we would go in the off season and travel. I think France and Rome were my two favorite places to visit. So thanks for joining us, Bob. Let's get this squash going. I'm going to draw it in. Okay. And I'm going to try to show some perspective with it. And it has a boundary where it lives, the placement of it. So I got to show it as being in front of this pumpkin. So I'm just going to kind of just scribble. And we got a little bit of a problem because this is all dry. This is really just dry and crusty. So I'm going to show one part of the squash kind of right there. And this is going to kind of come under. Let me try to use a dark color so that you guys can see it. I'm going to go phthalo blue and alizarin crimson and just try to really do a dark color. So see this as a geometric shape, just like when you're out painting a barn or a car or a person or the beach, whatever. Okay, it's a geometric shape. So I'm just kind of scribbling. This is how I draw. I'm getting a feel for it. Okay, I'm going to make it smaller here and bigger here toward the front so I can show some perspective because it's got that foreshortening. You have to, if you don't know what foreshortening is, look that up. You got to be able to show how things recede. And even though it's 5 feet in front of me, I still need to show that, or I want to show that. Okay, so we can just kind of get a little more specific here with the shape of it and just start drawing it in as a geometric shape. It kind of looks like a submarine or something, man. And then the little stem kind of goes off there like that, you know. Just dip into pure alizarin crimson and show you. Just try to get as dark as I can here for you. Okay. And then now I was talking about, we don't have we don't have light and shadow today. So what do you do? Well, if you're out there, like I said last week, if you're out there painting plein air and the light disappears, just don't panic. Just hang in there. Stick with your plan if you think the sun's going to come back out again. I'm going to draw this as if the sun were out because we're trying to each week add an object and make it look like a final finished painting. And I can't make this pumpkin in light and shadow and the squash a tonal painting. Like today's a tonal painting. There's no light. So I'm just painting the actual value with a little bit of color, you know, of the squash. And so I got my axis line here. So I draw a line through to show my axis. I got my points, my placement of it, like right here, the ends of how much I can measure if I want this with my brush. How big is the pumpkin? The squash it's about 3/4 the width of the pumpkin. You know what I mean? So this might even be a little bit too big, but I'm going to keep going. So we'll just keep going here with the drawing. And then that's really all I could do with the drawing to just kind of show the placement and the proportion and the perspective of it. So I want to compare the proportion of this to the pumpkin. But hey, let's get talking about as I paint. I did mix up some colors, but you know, just fears and doubts and things about painting and as we go here. And I think the first one is I pre-mixed up some colors here, is, you know, can I even start plein air painting? How do I do it? Should I start? I'm afraid I don't want to, that kind of thing. And I want to tell you a story that came out of our Facebook group. I'm going to paint the shadow first of this. And I've just got some titanium white, a little yellow ochre, and I've got a little bit of green in there. And kind of having problems because it's pretty wet because I just drew that and it's pretty wet. But this Facebook group, this lady, Lori, I think was her name, and she was saying that it was a pretty cool story. She said, hey, I went on this impromptu fishing trip with my son, and I felt like I wanted to kind of paint while we were out there. And so she went and stopped in somewhere and got some inexpensive watercolor set and bought a sketch pad, and she ended up making a watercolor painting from the boat. It was so cool, so I just wanted to tell you that to show as an example that it's really not, anybody can get started. It's not that big of a deal to get set up. I have a free video on setup. Click in the link in the description if you haven't seen that yet. It's not that you can afford it. It's not that much. You just really need three things. You need a brush, you need some paints, either watercolor, pastel, acrylic, oil, gouache, whatever your medium of choice, and then you need something to paint on. So a surface, like a sketch pad or a canvas panel or whatever. And then when you get more advanced, you can get an easel. But that's kind of point number one about stuff like this is don't be afraid, to get started. But this shadow has cerulean blue in it, and I'm just following the shape and the line of my drawing. And whenever the light changes like this and you're out playing or painting, get your shadows in quick. That would be a good tip for you is, let me just scroll up here. Sorry. Is get your shadows in quick and get that established. So that's what I'm doing now is getting my shadows in, and there is no shadow on this squash. There's no shadow really. I can't see it. There kind of is, but I'm going to go with the warm light, cool shadow structure. Like right now we have cool light and I can see a warm shadow underneath the squash, but I'm not going to do it because I want to stick with, I did see this squash in sunlight the other day. So I'm going to stick with that plan right there and make the cast shadow come out like right there on this squash. So that's what I'm going to do. But if you're out there painting in the field, you can go by memory. I mean, that's a way to do it too. If the sun disappears, go by memory. If you saw it, in the sunlight and it disappears and you want to stick with your original design, just do that. But remember my rule, warm light, cool shadows, and then cool light, warm shadows. And I can see the warm shadows under that squash. I mean, I almost am tempted to paint those because they're beautiful, but I'm sticking with my plan of warm light, cool shadows. And this is going to be hard because this is all crusty. It's dry. So let's just get the light portion of this squash in as we keep talking here. And again, if you're joining us, welcome. Reach up here and scroll. Say a quick hello if you're with us, where you're watching from and who you are. And we're just trying to improve our tactics and techniques here with plein air painting. So I've got some titanium white. I've got cad yellow light, a little bit of, you could use a cheater color, cheater colors like phthalo green, or you could mix a little bit of a green to add in here for the light portion of the squash. And it's not terribly powerful, See, I'm having trouble there because I really wet that, but we'll get it in. We'll get it done. And then I want to follow the shape of that geometric shape of the squash. Smaller here, larger here. And remember that there is a thing called a core dark that helps lift that object off the table. And it's the shadow where the light doesn't get under here. And you make it really, really dark right here. And I can see it, and it gets thicker and thicker, like right there as it gets closer to me, that core dark right there. Okay. So it's already starting to take some shape, but I really watered down my drawing too much, and I'm having trouble because my nice clean colors are just kind of getting muddied a little bit. But I'm going to keep going, and we'll keep talking here as we go. And I'm going to go into some yellow ochre and a little cad yellow light, okay, just to get the top portion of this spaghetti squash right there. Okay, so we'll just get that in there. And I'm just going to keep going over my drawing, man, until all this paint like settles in. But that's what we're doing there, And then the second thing I wanted to talk about with fears and criticism is the doubt that comes from within, you know, in your brain when you're a painter, that you're not going to improve and that you suck and that you're not going to get better and that people are going to laugh at your work. And, you know, it's hard because as a painter, you know, you are your work and your work is you. It's a reflection of you. You created it, you did it. So it reflects on you. And so when people look at it, they're judging you. And so you just have to accept that. I think we have to accept that and have a little bit of thick skin, but it's hard, you know, it really is. So I'm staying in my light and shadow here. We talk about pieces, placement, proportion, perspective. When you're out there painting the mountains and the rivers, this is pieces of light and shadow. Okay. Pieces of light and shadow. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Just going back and forth, light to shadow, shadow to light, and just trying to describe that shape, you know, right there. But, you know, along those lines, okay, that's looking a little better. I like how it's coming along now. I'm going to punch this color a little bit more, but along those lines of what people, you know, your self-talk, your mindset, you know, all artists have fears and doubts, right? I mean, that's why I read you that Monet quote. I mean, that guy was like tortured in his mind, but we all have that, and that's normal, and just accept that. And it's what you choose to do with it and what matters, right? Those thoughts. And so if you press forward and you just do this stuff a little bit afraid with some uncertainty, you will reach your painting goals, you know, is really what I want to say along those lines. But so a little lighter here. I'm going to go into a little more cad yellow light, a little more titanium white. Just looking at the light, seeing if it's changing at all. And then putting that right there, just nice thick brush strokes right there. So yeah, I lightened that up a bit. I don't know if you could see that, just with more yellow. And I'm going to do it even more right here. There we go. So you can see that light piece now a little better. And then it comes in down here. You can kind of describe it. It has some lines that come in to the shadow portion. But right there. Okay. And then we can work on this piece next. But, you know, I guess talking about the fears and the worries and concerns in your brain as a painter is that it's a journey, right? Painting is a journey, but it's a fun and challenging journey. It really is awesome. And so I'm going to go into cad yellow medium, a little yellow ochre, and I'm just getting this spot right here on the squash. There's some shadow in there, but it's a yellowish greenish color. So I'm just trying to search for it. And I'm going into more yellow ochre. I'm going to ride with that. And then I'm just going to go like this and just try to describe this shadow shape. That's pretty close. I like that. I'm going to go with a little more yellow. And because there's reflected light in here as well. And just try to describe that. There's kind of like lines on that squash where the stem, you know, is growing out. And we'll do the stem next. Some reflected light like right there. I'm just trying to use big, broad brush strokes, you know. Okay, let's look at this. I think this is a little too big, but we're doing okay. So our proportion was a little too big maybe, but we're okay. The placement is good. The squash looks like it's in front of the pumpkin, you know, and the perspective is good. I'm kind of showing some foreshortening. It's big here, and then it narrows as it dissipates away. So it's showing that the squash is on an angle, you know. And so let's do this little stem right here and have some fun with that while we keep talking. But I'm trying to think, you know, it really, the journey of a plein air painter really is miles on the brush. So you can't be so down and discouraged with yourself about your progress. You got to look at it as a journey, and it really is miles on the brush. It's practice. It takes years. I mean, I've been doing this since I think 2004 I started. So, and I'm still learning, you know. So it is a process, a journey, and you just have to be patient. So I'm doing this stem. There's reflected light in that stem. So a lot of cad yellow light, titanium white, just like right there. The first part of the stem is really catching a lot of reflected light like that. And then I go into this color. I thought I had a color mixed up. Yeah, for the stem. and it's got some blue and some purple in it. It's a gray mixture, really, for the stem. And I'm just gonna try to find the general shape of that fun stem. And part of it's gonna go into the shadow of the pumpkin there. So we got to kind of sort that out. But on the very end, there's like reflected light, like right there, that will be nice in the shadow of the pumpkin, you know? So I'm always thinking about, as you know, if you watched me before, I'm always thinking about contrast, how I can create interest and contrast with my paintings. And it's a warm next to a cool, a light next to a dark. Same here, light, dark, you know, warm, cool. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish. This shadow needs to be darker. You probably figured that out. So let me just do that so that it kind of makes more sense to us. So ultramarine blue, a little red. You can use cad red or alizarin crimson or permanent rose, whatever you want to use. And let's just go like that. And again, it's weird because I'm painting from memory. Like I can remember the shadow of the squash, but I can't see it right now. But that's a technique that you can use in your plein air painting. Okay, so just a general shadow right there. And you always want to make sure, this kind of goes without being said, I guess, but when the light's coming from here, you can't have shadows going different ways. They got to go, you know, your shadows have to all be in line. So again, if you're joining us, we're doing a live here. We're trying to improve our plein air painting skills, having some fun, having a little chat, and we're just trying to make a nice fall harvest painting. The pumpkin turned out okay, I guess. I like the stem. These colors were really tough. Maybe this shadow color was off a little bit. I like the reflected light coming from the bottom of the pumpkin. I like the color. I like this contrast. So all in all, it is what it is. It's done. I can't change it. It's dry. We were using that medium we were talking about, Galkid light. That's this stuff right here, Galkid light. It's a solvent that you mix in during the middle stages of your painting, but it dries everything quickly. So this needs to be more a different color, the shadow of the squash. I'm gonna try to dial that in and just make sense of it. It's a little tough. I'm gonna take some mixtures of puddles I already have of yellows and greens and just see if I can make some more sense of it. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. It's a tough color underneath that squash. It's got some like a bluish color to it, but it's hard to make sense of. And then I want to cover up my, you know, my core dark. And just trying to make the lines on the squash as well. So add a little more blue. And the shadow portion of that squash, even though there's not a whole lot of light and shadow, there still is because there just is. There's some light out there in the sky still. And that's why when we say cool light, warm shadow, you might think to yourself, well, you know, how can there be a shadow? Well, there is. There's a shadow underneath that squash right now, and it's warm. But as I said, I'm not painting the warm shadow. I'm painting the cool shadow so we can stick with our plan. So the squash gets bigger right here. So let's just try to show that. There we go. And try to keep the original shape of that. And it's almost like there's this really deep yellow, like reflected light coming out of the stem area, like right there. So I'll just show that a little bit right there. And then we just need a dark color for like right here where the stem is growing. There's shadow right there. It's very dark. So I got to show that right there. But yeah, we'll keep talking. Feel free to throw some comments or suggestions of what you're struggling with or dealing with painting right now. Try to help any way I can. We'll have a live Q&A at the very end here, which is coming up here shortly. So we can talk about that, but we're going to keep going. We're going to try to finish this thing before we leave here. So let's try to do it. The stem, little yellow ochre, titanium white, in with my green color. So there's reflected light, like right in there. And I want to try to get it on the stem. Yeah, that's pretty close right there. I'm using real thick paint. And then the stem gets darker. So I want to put that in there. I think we can go even darker this time. I'm going to go alizarin crimson, and I'm going to go cobalt blue. And I need to make that more of a gray color on the stem. So I'm going to take orange into the violet color I just mixed. And then right there. So yeah, that's a little more like it. See how dark that is at the very end of the stem? So we can just show that right there, and then there again, just to try to define the stem area. As you can tell, it's kind of interesting to me. And then there's some highlights on there too. Let's just see if we can catch those real quick. So titanium white, cad yellow light. My palette is so messy right now. I don't know if you can see this, but I've got colors flying everywhere because I'm trying to go quick. But see this reflected light? This will help us define. See how thick I made that? This will help us define the shape of this squash, you know, a little bit too, by putting these highlights. They're called highlights, you know. It's light that's coming right there. Okay. And then right there. There we go. So that's looking a little better. Not bad for how quickly we kind of burn through this, but hopefully you're getting some, you know, some tips and techniques about how I look at stuff. And you just apply this to whatever you're painting outdoors. This is called a core dark underneath here. It's the darkest part where no light gets in. And there is some reflected light coming up. So I could go like phthalo green, titanium white, cad yellow light, and then right here, just a pretty reflective kind of green color underneath that squash. We could try to show that just right there, like that. And then we can go back. Lastly, we can take our dark color of the shadow color of all this stuff, and beside the highlights right here, we just go like this. And let's see, find the shape of this like that, so that we show light and shadow on this object. So that's a quick run through, you know, of how we would do that. I kind of missed, but, you know, talking here about our fears, you know, like how about those haters, you know, and the fears that come lastly, you know, from without, from outside, other people talking about your work, you know, I mean, you got to handle it, but you can't live in it and dwell it. You got to handle it, you know. The first thing that I ask, hey, Dan, thanks for joining us, man. Good morning. Dan is from South Dakota. Thanks for joining us, Dan. We're just talking about fears a little bit, you know, that people judge your work, and there's always going to be haters. People are going to have to view your work. They're going to have to see it, you know, but I will tell you this, listen to this real quick. If you're just beginning plein air painting and you go and you take your setup and you take it out in the street and you just act like you know what you're doing and you set up and start painting, it doesn't matter if you've never put a brush stroke on the canvas before. People will think you invented fire. You're a genius. I mean, it really is unbelievable, the reaction that people give you. I mean, it's like you just invented something that, and when you think about it, you don't see like glass blowers or potters going out in the street, but when you see a painter out in the field or the street, it's quite an interesting thing to see, and people are impressed by it. So, hey, but beyond that, when people actually do view your work, you know, you just really have to handle it. You have to address it. The first thing I ask is, I let my guards and my defense go down and I say, hey, could they be right? You know, because whether they say something nice to you or not, if you can get better and improve, who cares, right? So ask yourself, could they be right? You know, and if they're coming from a spirit of, you know, just meanness or whatever, just dismiss it and handle it and walk on. But just do that too, is ask yourself, could they actually be right? You know, I'm just trying to lighten this up right here one last time. One last effort to just kind of get that right there. But I think we just need a little more yellows on this puppy in places, but that's okay. We can kind of work on this next week as well. But yeah, when you're talking about that, it's like you have to handle it, and then just you can't let it stop you from your success. You know, you really can't. If you don't give up, you'll succeed. That's the bottom line. That's what I've been telling myself, you know, is if you don't give up, you will succeed. So the only person that's going to stop you is you. So, you know, Dan, if you got some comments about that too. Dan's a plein air painter. I know that. Bob, I think you plein air paint, but I'm not sure. But you have to, you just kind of have some thick skin, and, you know, you can't get too high and you can't get too low. So I hope those things help you with your mindset when you are a painter thinking about becoming a painter. I think the bottom line is, hey, you know, are you convinced that the plein air painting is worth it? It's amazing, man. It's you get a lot of peace and a lot of joy out of it. And, you know, especially these days with all the craziness going on, it's a good way to get out and just kind of collect your sanity again. You know what I mean? Having to really go thick there because the pumpkin's dry. So I had to really smudge that in, you know, right there. But right here, a little bit warmer maybe. So just kind of looking, it's hard to talk and paint and do all that. So I'm just kind of going over this and thinking, how can we make this just a little bit better as we finish today? Because I know this is going to dry on me pretty quickly, you know, like the other stuff. So kind of messed that up a little bit. Would love to just do a couple more strokes if you hang with me here on this stem. So I'm going to go into titanium white, and I'm going to go into yellow ochre and cad yellow light, and just really try to do something with this stem here because I kind of messed it up. That's kind of tough, but yeah, that's a little more like it. There we go, a little better. Not great, but it'll work for now. But yeah, I just want to encourage you to stay positive with your painting. Don't get down on yourself, and don't let other people get you down, you know? That's the bottom line right there. Don't let other people get you down. Hang with it. It's a journey. You're going to love it. Stick with it. It's worth it. So there we go. And then we'll just leave that like that. Maybe work on it next week a little bit more. But we do have a second object here, which is cool. So that's very cool. And next week we'll do a third object and finish it up. But let's go into Q&A a little bit. And I want to bring up the first Q&A question myself, if you don't mind. But if you have questions, comments, concerns, throw them in there. See what Dan's saying. Just plow through and have fun. That's what it's all about. Yeah, I agree, Dan. And Dan's really good at this. I've talked to him. And Dan's the guy in that one video that we did there, top 2 beginner struggles. He came down for a private lesson, but his mindset is very, very encouraging because he's always very, very positive. And something that Dan does, I know that maybe will help you guys, is that, you know, like if you haven't scraped a painting or 10 or 20 paintings in your life, you're not a real painter. Sometimes you just gotta do the Monet. Maybe not light it on fire and put a knife to it, but just scrape it or just leave it and move on. You can't get so attached to it and detail it to death and try to make it a masterpiece and be so disappointed. You know, just get what you can get from it and move on to the next painting. Wouldn't you agree, Dan? But well, hey, for the Q&A, this is something that came up in our Facebook group. And again, if you haven't joined the Learning Plein Air group, join that Facebook group. We'd love to have you. Sorry, I don't mean to get my face in here, but I'm just, let go and enjoy yourself. Yeah, I'm just looking at your comments here. Sorry, I didn't mean to block the screen, but yeah, Dan did a great job in that video. That's pretty cool. And he's going to come down. I think we're going to film another one, you know, maybe a year from now and just see the progress that he's made. But Miles on the Brush. Yeah, that's it, man. That's what's so fun about plein air painting. You can't master it in a week or a month. You have to. It does take time, and that's what's fun about it, you know. So we had this question in our group, and it was, how do you store all this extra paint that you've wasted on your palette? What do you do with it? Do you scrape it off and throw it in the garbage? Here is these are empty aluminum paint tubes, they come empty. And then basically you just put the paint, you stuff the paint in the bottom of this open tube, and then you crimp it, and then you squeeze it out just like a normal tube. So this is like I haven't used this for a while, but it's just a gray pile mixture painted. So that's one thing you can do. You can store them in the freezer. You can, what I do is I scrape, after this painting, I'll scrape a lot of it aside and make a gray pile. And then I'll use that gray pile in the next painting for certain colors and values where that could fit in. So that's what I do. So just checking the comments here. But if you have comments, yeah, just let me know if you have questions. But that was the one question that came up. If you have other questions, fire them at me. Let me know. Again, if you're watching on replay, just leave a comment, say hello, and let me know what kind of videos you guys would like me to do. I'm going up, before I leave you here, I'm going up to do a video in the mountains on fall aspen trees. We just did one. Check it out if you haven't seen it, but it was that plein air landscape demo. I didn't do much teaching on it, but it was that mountain scene. You can kind of look at my process, watch that one if you haven't. But I'm going to check here real quick, and if you guys don't have any other questions, I'll respect your time and we'll let it go with that. But